Hello everyone, my name is Joseph Nemecek, and today is my summary presentation, third, our last one of the semester. I chose to do Chapter 1, the Racial Achievement Gap, from the book The Color of Mind we've been doing for our discussions, and my layout for this project, or this presentation, is I took the four subheaders of the chapters and gave the main ideas and examples and summarized those to give the full chapter summary. This is the first section, the framing the achievement gap. Measurement for the achievement gap comes from fixed differences in standardized test scores between groups like black and white students. From the NAEP data, there were persistent gaps in reading and math scores from 1973 to 2004. The achievement gap got smaller but then slowed back down and got stagnant. From the 1970s to the 80s, the gap shrunk by 40% between black and white students, but since the 80s, it hasn't changed very much. Poverty and gender aren't the only thing that affects the achievement gaps. Race still plays a big role. An example is a wealthy black male performs worse on tests compared to wealthy white males. Black students face tougher and more harsher school discipline and have higher dropout rates compared to white students. An example is that black secondary students were 3 times more likely to be suspended than white students. It was 23% black students to 7% white students back in 2012. Large cities and urban areas have the toughest situations and upbringings which affect the achievement gap. Because of many minority and poor students, these cities have the toughest areas when it comes to achievement gap because they have such a high poverty area. It's been an ongoing problem with the achievement gap over time. Even many years after Brown versus Board education took place, there are still big racial differences in education between black and white students. Next is explaining the gap. Historically, racist beliefs have declared that black people are less naturally smart than white students. In 1890, Senator John T. Morgan said that it was obvious that the idea of black inferiority existed. Also, in surveys that were taken today, it shows that many whites still believe in black inferiority, and it was found that 53% of them in one survey. The stereotype of black people being intellectually inferior shifted over time, that it used to be based on race or natural ability, to whereas now they are seen as lazy or unmotivated students. In 1990, 65% of white people believed that black people were less hardworking than others. Some strong predictors of the level of students' achievement can come from their family income, structure, education, and how their parents act or raise them, or how they are basically taught to live in this world. In Atlanta and New Orleans, black youth face violence, loneliness, and poverty, which led to their struggling academically. Racial achievement gaps come from history and continued discrimination against blacks and minorities. It doesn't just come from their family, background, or how much they put into it. An example is Linda Darling Hammond found there were unequal resources in black communities compared to white communities, which shows an opportunity gap. And this opportunity gap leads to the achievement gap because they don't have the same amount of resources. Next, we look at closing the gap. There are multiple explanations for the achievement gap, which include black students individually, their environments, and or discrimination from society. There is an argument that the cause is blaming the students' motivation level for academics or the systemic racism they face in education. Simple fixes are often better than big policies because a politician may act on a small fix rather than being proposed with something that's large and complex. An example is a cash for grade programs that people use. It focuses on giving students motivation for school because they get a reward for having good grades and an influence from their peers. Different solutions that are proposed for the achievement gap, they come from different theories of what caused the achievement gap. So when students have a lack of motivation, cash rewards come about for good grades. If the environment people think is the problem with the achievement gap, people suggest school of choice or moving families out of their tough and harsh bring up areas or their hometowns to give them a better chance. And if inequality and segregation are blamed in the school system, they say we need to integrate schools and bring races together to bring everybody together. Many fixes don't come along often because it takes money and commitment to change and a lot of time. And most of the time, they are missing them and it's hard to come about. Schools can focus on internal things that get rid of racial bias towards white students without getting a huge money grant. For example, is they can change any school policies or things that contribute to the color of mind or the unequal practice and systemic racism toward black students. Finally, education and achievement with dignity. With racial disparities in achievement, it is suggested that it is due to systemic injustice and is not due to racial differences like being black or white. An example is if racial groups like being black and white students show consistent gaps in test scores and grades between each other, it shows the problems in the student's environment and not their natural ability. In education, every student must be tested or treated equally, no matter their race, and should feel welcome and that they have a sense of dignity. From Robert Putnam's research, Jesse, who is an African American from Ohio, he shared that growing up black meant to always be fighting and be accepted as a full human in education and never be treated fairly. Very popular historical figures said that dignity was important, but they denied and shied away from black people. An example of this was Thomas Jefferson with his famous quote, "All men are created equal." But when he said this, he strayed away from the talents of famous black figures like Benjamin Banneker and Phyllis Wheatley. Long-held beliefs over time that differences in intellectual ability due to race are what justified inequality for black students, or what allowed that to happen. Ralph Waldo Emerson declared that black people had a lesser intellect and were meant to serve whites. School practice in today's era can hurt a student's dignity and make them feel unwanted, or heal them if they are treated correctly. In discipline and special educations, black students are mostly overrepresented. They are being very underrepresented in AP or honors classes, which shows them that they are less capable than white students and not giving them a chance. School officials and administrations have the responsibility to make sure everyone is treated fairly, regardless of their race, and they need to address any inequalities due to race in their schools, whether it comes with policy, treatment of students, and other things. Educational leaders won't be able to control the whole world ability of societal racism world, but if they start in their schools, they can focus on how they can fix it in their schools and contribute and get rid of the racial gaps and maintain students' dignity and be a part of the solution. That is all I have for my presentation on the racial achievement gap in The Color of Mind book by Darby and Rury. Here is my references, which is the book The Color of Mind, Why the Origins of the Achievement Gap Matter for Justice by John Rury and Darby. Thank you for listening.